Good. Now, the need for a transport system in multicellular organisms. Why do we need a transport system? Well, first of all, unicellular organisms like the amoeba and the paramecium, I have images of them below here. Let me just get this laser pointer. Right, so I have images of them below here. All these, well, the amoeba and the paramecium are unicellular organism, which means that they only have one cell. Okay, multicellular organisms have more than one cell. So the flatworm and the sea anemone, both of them have more than one cells. Okay, so they are animals, marine or sea animals. But these here are single-celled or unicellular organisms. The thing with unicellular organisms is that they have a large surface area compared to the volume. So the surface area to volume ratio is very high. So because of that, because of the large surface area compared to volume, they can rely on simple diffusion to get gases and nutrients across the surface and from one point of the cell to the next. Okay, they do not need an internal transport system to transmit substances across long distances. Okay, so simple diffusion is very efficient in those organisms. However, when we are talking about larger multicellular organisms, right, which are much bigger than the flatworm and much bigger than the sea anemone, so we're talking about things like plants and animals and so forth, they have a very small surface area to volume ratio. And because of that, they cannot depend on simple diffusion to get substances from one part of the body to the next, right? In some areas of the body, diffusion would be used. Okay, so the process of diffusion would be involved. But to get materials is not the main transport mechanism. There must be a transport system, okay, to get the materials from one point to the next, okay? And that is what we're going to look at today, the transport system in multicellular organisms. We have already covered transport in plants, okay? Talk about transpiration, transpiration pool, transpiration stream, xylem and phloem. We already been through all that. And now we're going to look at transport in animals. Okay, good. Now, what are the materials transported in blood? Okay, first we have oxygen, carbon dioxide, okay, digested foods like fats or fatty acids, glucose, amino acids. These are the end products of digestion. These are transported in blood, right? Urea, okay, and other nitrogenous waste substances or substances that contain nitrogen, hormones, right, needed to regulate body reactions, okay, and processes. Heat is also transferred around the body of the organism. So the oxygen is transported from the lungs, okay, so when you inhale air containing oxygen and other gases, and oxygen need to be transported from the lungs to the body cells, okay? And this is important because the oxygen is needed for respiration. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, is transported in the opposite direction. So it goes from body cells and tissues to the lungs, right? And then it's excreted through exhalation. So when you breathe out, you excrete carbon dioxide, okay? Some heat is also given off in the process. Digested food transports from the digestive organs or the intestinal villi in the colon of the small intestine. Remember the villi and the microvilli. So after the end product of digestion are absorbed there, they need to be transported from there and from the liver. Some of them are carried to the liver through the hepatic portal vein, okay, and be transported to the body cells so that they can be used for respiration, right? Production of different chemical substances inside of the body or inside of the cell, and also for different aspects of metabolism. Okay, so they are needed for growth and metabolism. The urea, right? The urea is produced in the liver and body cells. It's transported from there, okay, to the kidneys. And urea is a byproduct of protein metabolism. So when protein is broken down, okay, you get urea and you get some other nitrogenous waste. And these are transported from the liver primarily and body cells to the kidneys also for excretion, okay? Then we have hormones transported from ductless endocrine glands to various organs in the body where they are needed to regulate body functions. They are ductless glands means that the glands do not have ducts or channels to carry their secretions from the gland to the cavity where it's released or to the bloodstream, okay? So ductless endocrine glands, they release the substances directly into the blood, right? The opposite is an exocrine gland, okay? Let me just spell that here. The opposite of an endocrine gland is an exocrine gland, right? EXOCRINE, okay? So exocrine glands, they release their secretions through ducts. So for example, the salivary gland, right? The pancreas release pancreatic juice containing enzymes and so forth through the pancreatic duct into the small intestine and so forth. So all these are examples of exocrine glands, right? You also have endocrine glands that release hormones, okay? So for instance, the pituitary gland in the brain, okay? The adrenal gland above the kidneys, all these are endocrine glands, okay? Somebody had a question?
No, no question.
Okay. All right.
Rashida can hear nothing what you're saying.
Oh, I wonder, is her audio connected? Maybe she should check her. Rashida, are you hearing me now?
She said yes.
Okay, very good. Right, so endocrine glands, exocrine glands, okay? Hormones are produced by endocrine glands and they are transported from those glands to different organs in the body and they are needed for regulation of body functions, okay? So for instance, to regulate blood glucose level, to regulate the volume of water in the blood and so forth, okay? Heat is also transported and it's transported from the muscles, the liver, to all tissues of the body, okay? And that is important to regulate body temperature. Good? Good. So the part of the circulatory system, the two main parts of the circulatory system are the heart and the blood vessels. The heart is a pump, okay? And the blood vessels are the channels that carries the blood from the heart to the different parts of the body. Okay, so the heart acts as a pump to keep blood circulating throughout the body in the blood vessels. So there must be some pressure source and that comes from the heart, okay? The blood vessels, these are the network of tubes, okay, through which blood flows. The major blood vessels are arteries and veins, right? These are the major ones or the larger ones. The minor blood vessels are the arterioles, venules, capillaries, and we would come to what those are in a moment, okay? Okay, so the types of blood vessels. First, let us look at arteries, veins, and capillaries. We'll look at the structure and function. So artery, blood flows, well, in arteries, blood flows away from the heart at high pressure. Okay, remember that the heart is pumping blood with a lot of force. So the arteries must be able to carry blood under high pressure, okay, from the heart. They also have elastic tissue in the walls, and that allows them to withstand the surges of blood pressure, okay, or the high blood pressure there, so that under pressure, the walls could stretch and contract, stretch and contract to maintain the pressure. And that's actually how pulse is generated. So when you test your pulse, that's actually the rapid contraction and relaxation of the walls of the artery in response to the pressure of blood. Okay, so if you look at this image on the side here, this is a diagram of an artery. Notice the thickness of the wall. Okay, it's very thick, and that's important to withstand the pressure of blood, okay, flowing through the artery. Okay. I think the meeting would end in about 10 minutes. So if it ends, just click the link and come back on, okay? Good. Blood is delivered to the organs at pressure slightly less than it left the heart. So the pressure at which the blood enters the organs from the arteries is slightly lesser than the pressure at which it comes from the heart with. Okay, and that's because as the blood moves away from the heart, the pressure decreases, okay, because it's moving away from the source of the force. Now the walls of the artery are very thick and muscular, containing fibrous tissue to withstand the high blood pressures, okay. Veins carry blood towards the heart at low pressure, okay. So arteries carry blood away from the heart, veins carry blood towards the heart, okay, or to the heart. And the veins are the vessels here are the veins. They expand to take increasing volumes of blood during exercise. So when you are engaged in physical activities, your veins would get larger, or we say they would dilate or expand, and that would cause them to carry more blood. That's why when you exercise for a long period of time, you start seeing the veins on your hand, right, start to show, because they are expanding, they are dilating to carry more blood. And when they carry more blood, they'll be able to carry more heat, and you'd be able to regulate body temperature effectively. Okay. Now, as blood pressure is low in the vein, you need valves. Okay. You need valves to prevent blood from flowing backwards. So those valves in the vein, they are called semilunar valves, right? Semilunar meaning half moon, or half of a moon. It's called that because the valves actually shape like a half moon. Okay, so some persons tend to call them the half moon valves. And those valves are important to prevent the backflow of blood, right? Because there isn't enough pressure in the vein to continuously push the blood forward. So you need the valves to prevent them from going backwards. Okay? And those valves are located at regular intervals along the length of the vein. Okay? Veins have much thinner walls, or thinner layer of muscle and fibrous tissue than arteries, okay, because they do not need to withstand very high blood pressures. Capillaries, blood flows between arteries and veins at low pressure. So the capillaries are the connection between the artery and the vein, okay? So if a blood from an artery need to get to a vein, then it must pass through a capillary. It cannot go directly to the vein, okay? And most of our organs in the body are surrounded by capillaries, or capillary networks. So it's like a network of blood vessels that surround the organs and tissues of the body, right? So that the substances that are transmitted in blood can get from the blood to the organs so that they can use it for metabolism and growth and so forth. Oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse through the walls of the capillaries. Okay, so for instance, in the lungs, it is the capillaries that surround the alveoli of the lung that cause blood to move, well, not blood, but oxygen to move from the lungs to the blood and carbon dioxide to move from the blood to the lungs. Okay, gaseous exchange. And water and solutes like glucose, amino acids, all this pass across the walls of the capillaries into tissue fluid. The tissue fluid is a fluid inside of the tissue, okay, that surround the cells of the tissue. Okay, so the glucose and the amino acid pass into that fluid through the walls of the capillaries. So the capillaries must have very thin walls, and it must have holes in its walls that allows those exchange of substances to happen. Okay, so capillaries, they are very flat. The membrane is very flat. Okay, it's actually one cell thick, or one cell in thickness. So that is a very special adaptation for diffusion to occur very quickly. Okay, so walls are very thin. Okay, so the distance needed for diffusion is very small. Good. So blood vessels, remember the walls of arteries and veins are thicker than the walls of capillaries. Okay, they are more muscular than the walls of capillaries, and the walls of arteries are more muscular than the walls of veins. Okay, and that is important because the arteries are closer to the heart and they have to withstand the pressure of blood coming from the heart.